So, happy January 18th. I have up here on the start slide today some reminders on how we graph these things. Remember, open circle means it is not equal to, closed circle means it is equal to. So we today are going to finish our 9-3 lesson, take any other questions from that. Then we're going to pass back your Chapter 8 Masteries. We're going to take any questions from that. Actually, I don't know which we'll do first. We're going to take a couple questions from the homework, too. I had a couple people reach out to me last night, and we realized we should probably talk about the whole group. And then we will talk about your test. There is a Progressing to Mastery for Chapter 8, but it is not a do the entire thing. It is going to be do questions similar. So if you missed 4 problems and you got Progressing, you only have to do 4 problems on the Progressing to Mastery. You just got to show me that you can actually correct the mistake you made last time. And a lot of you have some small mistakes, and when you get it back, I think now that we've been doing some more practice with this stuff, you'll realize, like, oh man, I should have realized what I was supposed to do the first time. Hopefully that's a quick revision. So, did we make it all the way through this? Got it?
No.
Did we graph it? Because that's the big question.
Yeah, no, we didn't do it. No, but we did not.
So, here's the, like, if you have less than your neighbor does on their paper, means you stopped writing while we were still going. So let's review and make sure that we all have everything that we need. What were the important parts of this problem? Abby, what was important?
Okay, so we only used yellow and green.
Okay.
And so in yellow, we did length and 7.5 feet. And for the green, we had what are the possible
Widths, thank you.
triangle.
And I'm going to go ahead and in blue, he has at most 24 feet.
Oh, yeah,
So we said Jack's now a street performing magician. Hopefully you're making enough to get by, dude. And he's making a box with some rope so people stay away and he doesn't injure anyone. He doesn't have good insurance, so it'd be dangerous if he injures anyone. So he's going to box it out. And we know his length is 7.5, and we don't know what his width is, but it's got to be a perfect rectangle. Kind of OCD like that. Yeah, Hayden? Yeah, so what did we have set up? Yeah, what is that 2L plus 2W? That represents our... So together, what do we call that? The whole distance around. Perimeter. So that, compared to 24, can we use all of the rope? Like, can it be equal to? Yeah. Can we use more than the rope that we brought? We can use more than all of the rope? Yeah, that wouldn't make any sense. So we could use less than, though. Then we substituted, so I'm going to speed up a little bit because most of you should have this on your paper. So we substituted in for the length was 7.5. We got 15 plus 2W is less than or equal to 24. Then we started solving. So, Maylee, what was our first step in solving here? We had to get rid of the which? Not first, actually. We want to isolate the W, but to get there, remember, we have to do the order of operations backwards. So, yeah, we started by subtracting. I do not want green. So if you don't have this work written down, please catch up and get this written down like all of us had. We then get that 2W was less than or equal to 9. From there, Xavier, we divide by 2 on both sides. And we got W has to be less than or equal to 4.5. So now, when we go to graph this, the main reason that we wanted to come back to this and graph it, go ahead and draw your number line. And really, we only have 2 numbers that matter here. The 4.5 obviously matters because that's our reference point. That's the value that we know we're going to graph. We're going to put our circle around that. And when I go to graph that, Reagan, is that circle going to be filled in or open? So you have a question mark. Do you want to think for a second? What determines whether it's filled in or open? You can pass it off if you need.
So open because less than or equal to is not a full equation and you don't have an exact number for W.
But if my value can equal 4.5,
then I think it would be shaded.
it's shaded because it has the or equal. Guys, it's right up here on the start slide. If you need. If it has the or equal, it gets shaded in. If it's not a possible value, I can't shade it. So now, I said two numbers are important on this number line. Think about this situation in reality. Jack is making a box. We're discussing the possible width of the box, and we said it has to be less than or equal to 4.5. So we start shading this direction. Do I go that direction forever? What is he? That's not where I'm going to stop. So my width could be 4.5 or less. Where would my width have to stop its possible widths?
2,
What?
0.
Why?
Because there's no more. You could go like negative string.
I can't have a negative length. So when I'm shading this way, all the way out to 0, could my width, there's some right here if you need to, Anthony, right on the end of the table. Could my width be 0? Do I have a rectangle if I have no width?
No.
No, I would just have a line. So I shade over to 0, but that circle is open. It is not a choice. It is not an option. I don't know why my A is capital, but that is not a choice.
Why do you have a circle at the end? Because do you want to make sure that you're not stopping?
So that is my end point. That says I can have a width bigger than 0 or less than 4.5. And what that actually says, if we want to write this, now this is more 8th grade standard, but if we were going to write this specifically, it would actually be that. Because 0 is less than W, or W is more than 0. But W also has to be less than or equal to 4.5. This is what we call a double inequality. You
Wow.
don't need to understand these right now, but this is how you will start to do this in 8th grade. We reference two different numbers that I could be between. Any questions on the fact that 0 would be our stopping point there? That I can't have a width less than 0, because then I run out of rectangle.
Let's have an imaginary.
Now, realistically, if Jack had a width to his rectangle of 1 foot, he doesn't really have much space to move around and do magic in, so that might be a little hard. But it could work. It would still be a rectangle. So, we already answered the got it, talking about could it go forever, W being less than the 4.5. So, we, again, are going to play around, and one of these things is not like the other. With partners close by you, or alone, if you don't like any people close by you, we want to solve all 4 of these, so if you need Post-its, you can grab that. If you need scrap paper, you can grab that. We want to solve each of these inequalities and figure out which one does not have the same solution as the others. I would advise some separate paper to show your work on. Do not try to do all this in a calculator. You need to write out the work to follow the process. So I'll give you a few minutes to try this. Probably at least 4. I'll give you at least a minute per. If you are stuck, if you are confused at all, please stick up a hand. I will be meandering the class to help you out. Sweet, nice. Well, really, I agree you can't have a negative amount of rope, but the reason we couldn't have a negative is you can't have a negative length. Like, not just rope, but any length can't be negative. That wouldn't make sense. Remember that when you start this, you want to write out the original and then start working. Do not immediately start doing something until you have that original written out. on 9.3 or 9.1, 9.2?
I think it's 9.3. Because I just wanted to
I
try
can check
that.
your message from last night too. Did you submit your attempt already?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah, it's this one. Be the 440.
Let me see. It's harder than we almost have like the exact same thing. Oh, I think I did your phone number.
You just look at the problem and see what problem is it.
No, the graph names were pretty easy. It was
Oh, yeah, I remember why this screws you up. Yep.
I'm the 79657. The last digit is different. I'm like, Mom, why'd you do that? Are you gonna be here during extensions?
Mhm.
Because you wanted me to say that reminder to you too.
Give me show of thumbs if I give you minute and a half more. Is that enough, or thumbs down you need like lots more time, and then anywhere between? Okay, we'll give you like 2 to 3 more. So we start with this, and then we want to start asking ourselves, what do we do to isolate the y? So if we think about our order of operations being that PEMDAS ladder, we're working up this when we're solving. So we're asking ourselves, can we undo anything in this step? Then we move up. Can we undo anything in that step? And we keep moving up. So the first thing we're asking ourselves is, can we undo any addition or subtraction that's happening to the y? Well, that 2 is multiplied with it. How is that 15 multiplied? It's adding. So we can turn that into subtraction to undo it, but that doesn't mean we change it to subtraction. It means that what we physically do on both sides is subtraction. So actually, I'm just going to cover this up. What we would show is a minus 15 on both sides. Now this is not my inequality. That's what I'm doing to both sides. So then we now get my left side turns into 2y because these turn into 0 is greater than my right side. 6 minus 15 gives me a negative 9. Then what do we do to undo this multiplication? Divide. So we show the division bar under both of these. We show division by 2. So then this just becomes y. My greater than symbol stays greater than because my division is with a positive. And the negative 9 divided by 2 becomes negative 4.5. And that's our result. You are wrong. Let's bring it back together and start discussing some of these cases. Hopefully I get your question here. If not, let me know. On our first one here, Melee, I'm going to pick on you just because we just discussed this. That's way off. What in the world? Let's try this again. Hey, Mr. Shirt, remember when I said I would pilot one of those smart screens? I'm now having to reorient like 3 times a class.
That's true.
I don't remember you saying that.
It's when Dr. Gupta was here. I was volunteering to lead the way in technology.
Sorry, I don't recall.
It's all good. I will still volunteer. I just can't have a new smart board because the projector wouldn't work. So, if we look at 2y plus 15 is greater than 6. So, Melee, what's the first thing we want to do on both sides to start getting the y towards being alone? Yeah, I want to stop this addition from ever happening. So we subtract 15 on both sides. That gives me now 2y. The 15's turn into 0. This 6 minus 15 turns into negative 9, then what do we do, Maylee? We undo this multiplication by dividing on both sides, and we get final result. Y is greater than negative 4.5. Anyone have confirmation for that? Is that what we got? Yeah.
Wait, wouldn't you flip it since you're dividing by a negative?
We're not dividing by a negative. We have a negative involved, but what did we do?
Oh, isn't it if you divide, if like, you have to divide by a negative?
The number we put in was a positive. If this 2 was a negative, then we'd flip the inequality symbol. I'm really happy you brought that up. Do not fall in the trap. We are dividing with a negative, but we did not divide by a negative. We divided by a positive. So be very careful there. On our, we can move left or right. Do I have any volunteers to talk me through this? Hayden, where do you want to go? Go to the right one. So write out the original one to begin with. Negative 1/3 y plus 27 is greater than 28 and a half. All right, what'd you do first, dude? We stop the addition from ever happening by subtracting 27. That gives me, left side turns into negative 1/3 y. 1 1/2. And I'm actually going to write this as an improper, just because I really don't like mixed numbers. They're just kind of annoying. You don't have to do this, it just makes your life easier. Impropers are less to deal with than a mixed number. So now the kicker. This is the dangerous step. What do I do to get rid of a negative fraction coefficient? How do I cancel that out to a positive 1? Multiply by its reciprocal. And you don't even technically have to say negative reciprocal, because what happens when I flip this? Is it negative? Yeah, so its reciprocal is already negative. So we multiply by negative 3/1 on both sides. What's a negative times a negative? It's a positive. 3 across the top times 1 gives me 3. 1 across the bottom times 3 gives me 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1, and we get y. Now, if we want to write it, we could write a positive 1y, but we don't need the positive, and we don't need the 1 because all of that is assumed. Now, what else happens there, Hayden? Because, and I would advise you to please highlight this, because we multiplied with a negative. This inequality symbol turns around. It's trying to log me off. That's the issue. It should hopefully stay there. And we get y is less than, but we got to do this multiplication still. What's a positive times a negative? Do we have a pair of negatives? No, so it stays negative. We get 9 across the top, 2 across the bottom. What's negative 9/2? Exactly what we just had up there, so negative 4.5. Are these results the same so far? Check your inequality symbols. Ah, your inequality symbol flipped. These are not the same so far. We have found our 2 different options. So now we have to figure out what's a third one equal so that we can find which one is not the same. So we've got our first 2, and they are different from each other. Sorry, it didn't capture because my board sucks today, apparently. That was actually really good that Sherg was in here to see how crappy that gets.
He always ends up calibrating it like twice.
Lily? Yeah, so one of the other ones we haven't done yet. Bottom left, bottom right, which one?
Let's do the
Bottom
bottom one.
left. 6.8y plus 27 is greater than negative 3.6. What did you do first?
So first I did the minus 27, and then I minus 37 from 36, negative 36. And so
Yeah, they're
And then
multiplied.
36, negative 36 minus 27 is negative.
You realize that's 3.6, right?
Yeah, 3.6. Wait, no, never mind.
Crap. So my decimal's really bad because I can't line it back up. But if I do negative 3.6, so forget about the 0.6 for a minute. If you were at negative 3, told to go down 27 more, I'd end up at negative 30. Then I go 0.6 more, and I get negative 30.6.
Oh yeah.
And then you do 6.8 divided by 6.8, and then 30.6 divided by 6.8.
From there, does my inequality symbol flip? No. Even though my numerator is negative, what I divided by was positive, so that stays the same. Negative 4.5, right? So if this one's greater than, and the first one was greater than, this should be the different solution.
Oh, we didn't do the other one.
We're hypothesizing that should be the difference. Now, if that's true, then the result to this one should also be y is greater than negative 4.5. So let's solve it out and find out, is that the same? Anyone already finished that one out? Yeah, I got it done. Anyone I haven't chatted with yet?
Oh, I know that trick, Mr. Hudson. I know why you were trying to say that.
Negative 2y minus 15 less than negative 6. Is that a hand or no? Yes? What would be the first thing I would do there, Izzy?
Yeah, you would add 15 to both sides.
I would add 15 to both sides. I get negative 2y less than a positive 9. Justin, what would be the next thing I would do there? Hey, you passed yesterday. Give it a shot. So how is the value attached to the y held with it? What is that value that we want to get rid of? Like, what is it multiplied by the y? Negative 2. How do we undo multiplication? So what do we want to divide by here? There we go. Divide by the negative 2. We get y. Now what happens, both you guys are Brandon, what happens since we divided by the negative? The inequality flips. We have our greater than, which is what we wanted. When I do this division, we get negative 4.5. That matches the first three. So this guy is our different solution. Any questions? Now, the numbers on this next one are slightly easier. This is the last one we're going to do today. I want you to solve the God out on your own, get to your solution, then verify with a neighbor. So I'll give you like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, something like that. Be careful working with those negatives. That's where people like to make their mistakes. We've got a negative 8 and a negative 21. There's a lot negative happening here. I know, but you're going to add it to a negative. So be careful. You're in the negative side of the number line and you add, you go up towards the positives. So, CJ, because people kind of already gave this away, so we'll go ahead and talk about the first step. What would be the first thing that you would do here? We would add 8 to both sides to stop the minus 8 from happening. Now, here's where people still struggle. And guys, if I was you, and I had like a math notebook, I'd have a number line drawn somewhere, just to help me think about this. If I'm at negative 21, I go up by 8. Where do I land? Negative 13. Then, what do we do to finish this out? We divide by 4. Casey, you had a question earlier. Did that get answered?
It was the flip the sign.
Yeah. Did that get answered, though?
I read your mind.
So then, even though this number's negative, what we're dividing by is a positive. So my sign stays how it is, and we get negative 3 1/4, or negative 3.25. Any questions? Nice. Good. That's a really good point, actually. That's the moment where you've had enough repetition that you've reached that point of like you've learned it. Now you have to make sure that you can remember and apply it accurately time and time again. So we had at least one question from the homework, so I'm going to go over that. Then I'll give you guys your masteries, and then we can take any mastery questions. So question 7 here in the 9.3 homework, which a lot of us have yet to submit this, which is fine because we didn't finish the lesson, but you want to try to get this done today if at all possible. Starts with 6x plus 2 is less than negative 2. If you haven't submitted your homework yet, write this down somewhere. You're going to get a free answer right now. Abby, you mind if I embarrass you a little bit?
Yeah.
So, last night, with everything else going on in her life, Abby took the time between school and swim practice to text me and try to deal with this problem with me. Now, I was having to help my wife with something, and I missed a half an hour between our texting, so we ended up having to say, let's talk about it tomorrow. But, guys, there's no excuse. If Abby, a swimmer, swimming's tough, wrestlers over here, we got all kinds of people with a million things going on, you got no excuse for not getting your homework done. So, reach out to me, ask me for help. I had about 5 people reach out to me last night. That was great. I had text messages, Google Hangouts, and 1 email. So, let me know when you need help. This is going to be a small mistake that I think she'll have that like, oh God, it's so easy, but I was making it so hard. What's the first thing that you want to do here, Abby? If you're at negative 2 and you go down 2 more, where do you end up? Julia? Negative 4. If you got this one wrong, you probably thought that you had 0. Because you probably thought 2 minus 2 is 0, but this is negative 2 minus 2. Then, we got to do the division, which most of us can probably recognize quickly. But the issue that threw one other person off when they texted me was they said, hey, the answer that I got isn't there. This fraction can be reduced. Is that a hand? What can 4 and 6 both be divided by? 2. This is really x is less than negative 2/3. Even though this 4 is negative, my sign doesn't flip because what I divided by was positive. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question on 9.
Sure.
The first homework.
On the first homework.
Then 9.
Let me pass out tests really quick, and then we can do any other homework problems or test problems.
I think
it's on 9.
So these are not in map yet. They're in my grade book. If you have a question wrong on here, the first thing you want to do is try to figure out what you did wrong and correct it. But what I'm going to need to take you from progressing to mastery is on the progressing to mastery, and I'm still tweaking it, making sure that the questions match perfectly. You're just going to need to find similar questions to the ones that you missed. So you missed a two-step problem solving, you'll want to redo a two-step problem solving. If you missed a one-step, like division type problem, you'll want to try to do a one-step, like division type problem.
Did you see how much I put in the
Kalski. So number 2 kind of ended up as a freebie. Number 2 didn't really matter. It ended up as a freebie, so it did not go into whether you got a progressing or a mastery. But for what it's worth, what pretty much everybody missed on that was there would have been commas where those, or there would have been parentheses where those commas are. So if you're mad about number 2, that would have been, I think, 5 parentheses x plus 8 instead of 5x plus 8. But it's fine because I let it go. It was a freebie. So I need your eyes to make sure that people listen to me. We have like 10 minutes left. We're still doing stuff. But tomorrow, I will have the progressing to mastery for this. Actually, I might have those by AO today. All you need to do, and it won't be the same question number, but it will be the same question type, is redo, well not redo, I guess do problems that match your original problems you got wrong. If you're progressing, that's all you got to do. If you do the whole thing, that's fine, whatever. But I'm not making, because a lot of us had like 4 or 5, and a lot of it's like the same mistake a couple times, or silly mistakes. So today, look through those and try to correct what you have wrong. You can work with each other, you can do whatever. If you find somebody that has it right, have them talk through the problem, explain what they did. Do we have any questions on how your grade will go from progressing to mastery? I will not put these in math, at least until I get you those progressing to masteries, but even then I normally give you a day to get that turned back in. So in the first homework, which actually now I'm going to have to log back in. So you guys can chat amongst yourselves for a second if you want while I'll log back in and get to that other homework. Do you guys think it would help if we went over some of those tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah? Who just said they had a question on the first one? Lily, did you say you had a question on the first one? This? This? So, I got a request for 9192. Because all you ever have to do, if you want to talk about homework during class, is tell me. I don't make it part of my plan, because quite frankly, a lot of you end up behind, because you leave homework in math for last, or you've done revisions or whatever. So I'm not going to go over homework unless I know that there's a request. All you got to do is ask me. So that's why we ended up going over homework today. I had a request from last night. On number 6 here, what would we do, Lily, I'm going to put you on the spot, to get x by itself? We would plus the 2 to both sides, and we would get x is greater than 3. So then to graph it, 3 is my reference point. Would I shade in the 3? No. And then we have to be greater than, so this would be A. Now a lot of people, though, probably struggle on problems like 5. So 5, you're an electrician, drives 8 miles round trip each day to her job. She can travel 300 miles before she needs to refill her car. So you could go less than or equal to the 300. Maybe we have to talk about what do we drive. Well, she already drove 100 and then drives 8 miles every day and a little bit of manipulation, and you'll get your right answer there. Anything else from 9192?
Yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think it's 9 the one with the garage.
Oh, the paint one? Patty wants to use at most 6 gallons. So, can she use all 6? I don't know what's going on, but I'm not correcting it again. We don't have time. She could use all 6. It could be equal. Could she use more than? No, she's only got 6. So she can use less than or equal to 6. Now, how does she use it? She's painting the garage and the house. So we could say house plus garage if we wanted. But we know something about the garage. It's G. We know something about the house. It's 5 times as much. So, if we know that the house is 5 times as much as the garage, I could say house is 5G. And garage, they told me, takes G. So how I use my paint is the G for the garage and the 5G for the house. That's got to be less than or equal to my 6. So we really have the garage and the house have to use less than or equal to the 6. So it would be A. We got 5 minutes. Any other questions? 9192, 93. From this one?
I just didn't know where to put it on the, like, I tried it like twice. I still think I missed it.
What would be the first thing we would do to the 2x plus 4 less than 2? Justin? Take away the 4 on both sides. Now, this is where people might start to have their struggle. 2 minus 4 is negative 2. What do we divide by? Abby? Positive 2. Do we flip the inequality? No. What we're dividing by is positive. X comes out to be less than or equal to, just less than negative 1. Negative 1 is my reference point. It is open, and I go less than. Other questions from any of the chapter 8 or 9 homework? Obviously 9 is our primary right now. Let's then chat about those test questions. So, we already talked about number 2 a little bit. It ended up as a freebie. What test questions are giving you trouble? Justin? 6. Shoot, it might be quicker to get to it from here. So I have all of your stuff in multiple places. Except it's not as easy. Huh?
So,
Yeah, so this is the site that I use to make all the things. So it's like an attic full of problems. So it has a giant database. If I went to create something or edit something, I then go to select problems, and it's got all of the standards, and then I can go into the Common Core standards and go into math for middle school and see all the different problems that they have based off topic. But if we just look at the chapter 8 test, number 6.
wait.
I think you know how to do this.
So, if I
So, Justin, what would be the first thing that you would do with number 6?
I got this. I'm at 16, my bad.
Oh, 16. I was like, I think 6 is one that you can probably do.
Yeah, I did that.
15 and 16 killed people. And I reminded you in class the part that's going to screw you up. They rent 2 snowmobiles or take 3 buses. So almost everybody accurately had 170. Oh, I can't write on PDFs. Sorry, I forgot that I can't write on PDFs. I got to slide that up to the TV. My just the new software that I have on my computer. So you guys know what question 16 is. So I'm just going to over here zoom in so I have some open screen. Almost everybody was able to figure out the $175 flat fee plus the $250 per mile. Do we only pay that once?
No.
3 times. You're thinking about the snowmobiles. This has to be multiplied by 3 at the beginning. If you waited till the end to do a division by 3, you get the answer wrong. Because this is equal to our 1875. Now you could, to start, look at what did they pay per bus. And to figure out the per bus price, you could divide by 2, or sorry, not 2, divide by 3 over here, and divide by 3 over here. Then we would figure out that the 175 plus the 250 per mile for each bus, we paid $625. So then we could solve it out from there. Same thing with snowmobiles. A lot of people had the 35 plus $12 per hour. But you forgot that they had 2 of them. They pay the 35 twice. They pay $12 per hour twice every hour. So, work with each other. Come see me if you have any other questions on those corrections. I will have those progressing masteries tomorrow. If you submit questions to me, we can go over some more stuff tomorrow in class. Have a wonderful day, guys.
I have a question.
I hope we have an answer.